Okay, I think we can officially begin this. I do just sort of want to announce that this is being streamed on YouTube live and will be made available in terms of recording on YouTube and, going forward. So this is the fourth meeting. The focus of the meeting, as you all know, is on the selection of the 6 commissioners. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that this will be also available on the commission publication site. If you have any technical assistance from the public, you can turn to Ty Lee, who can help you if you're in the audience or you're one of the commissioner panelists. And then finally, if you have public comment, you can submit it to commserv@bosla.lacounty.gov. And with that, call to order. Ty, can you take roll call?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 4th remote meeting for the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission. Today is Monday, December 28th, 2020, and the time is 10:05 a.m. I will begin this morning by taking the roll. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Franklin?
Present.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Here.
Commissioner Maeda?
Present.
Commissioner Obregon?
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Orpinella Segura? Commissioner Soto?
Present.
Commissioner Stetcher?
Here.
Commissioner Vento?
Here.
Okay, thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to Gayla.
Okay, so good morning. Today, the agenda item 2 is looking at the slate of 6 that the commissioners have prepared. I do want to remind the public that this body is not officially constituted until there's a group of 14 commissioners appointed. The task of the 8 randomly selected commissioners is to select the additional 6 commissioners to be added by December 31st. Once formally organized with 14, there will be the ability to have the quorum of 9, and 9 members are needed to vote on any official actions. So right now, again, this is an interim body. In January, there will be a swearing in of all of 14 members to the oath of office to be commissioners and various training in the election laws, Brown Act, selection of a chair and vice chair who will then take over running these meetings. This is the 4th meeting. The first 2 meetings were really going over an overview of the 52 qualified applicants provided by the Registrar-Recorder, receiving public comments. And the meeting on Saturday, December 26th, you all decided to each develop your own slate of candidates for discussion comparisons today. We do have 2 tentative dates if a decision's not derived today in terms of the final 6. One possibility would be Tuesday, December 29th at 2 p.m. The other one is Tuesday, December 29th at 7 p.m. They are both publicly posted as special meetings, so we have placeholders for them. Again, I want to emphasize transparency, integrity, objectivity, and public engagement as our values going forward. All right, so what we're going to cover today, the bulk of your time will be looking at the slate of 6. You all agreed on Saturday, since Commissioner Orpinella Segura could not join us till 11, that most of the time in the first hour would be spent on sharing your viewpoints on your slates. When Commissioner Orpinella Segura arrives, we'll have her go over her slate, but no motions were going to be made until after 11 o'clock when she can join us. Based on how far you get, and I think we should sort of take a rendering as we approach 12 o'clock, we will then decide on next steps in terms of the meeting at 2 o'clock tomorrow, if it is needed or not. So that's an overview. Again, just for the public, the qualified candidates all meet the minimum qualifications as evaluated by the Registrar-Recorder. There is 1 commissioner per supervisorial district, and I've already covered your role in selecting the 6. I do want to emphasize that you cannot apply formulas or specific ratios. In addition to experiences and reflecting the county's diversity, you all had decided to create a new category. And this created some confusion in terms of what should be the percent mix, because the political party preference should reflect as nearly as possible LA County's political party mix. And I was using the percentages or the numbers that were used for the Democrat, Republican, and no party preference. And Commissioner Holtzman had presented an overview of the value of adding all of the other parties that were not Republican, not Democratic, and adding them to the NPP group to create a new category that you called NDR. The reason this is important is we had a discussion on Saturday in terms of what is the right percent mix for political party. So I am going to recommend that we go with Commissioner Holtzman's calculations, and it varies by a couple decimal points, but what happens is the NDR now includes the NPP and all the other political parties. Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
Oh, I appreciate you're doing that, Gayla, very much. I just want to point out that on that slide there, the second column under 6 potential CRC, those 3 numbers should be corrected so that the first column and the second column add up to the third column.
So right now we're using decimals, so you can decide whether or not to round up or down. So we can,
They're quite a bit off, actually.
okay.
Like the 3.1 should be 3.3. The 1.8 should be 1.3. And the 1.0 should be 1.4.
Okay, I will make those corrections
Okay.
as we
Thank you.
go forward. All right, so on December 26th, you all looked at, based on your individual evaluations and discussions, you began to identify your top 11, your top 23. You looked at that, you looked at the geographic distribution, and you decided to develop your individual slates. And this is the shortened list. You added some additional candidates, applicants to the list. This is listed alphabetically. It contains what information we have. It gives you the evaluation that you all did individually, the number of evaluators. You will see later, this is the frequency of how frequently among the 8 of you, this candidate or this applicant came up on one of the slates. It gives you the party, gender, age, race, ethnicity, supervisorial district, city, and zip codes, which we went over before. Now, this slide, and I'm going to turn it over to each of you, presents each of your individual slates. And I just am going to call on you on order to present it, but I want to sort of let you know what's in your packet. So when you hear your fellow commissioners describe their slates, you have points of references. This table summarizes all of the applicants that were in this list for the survey, development of the slate. And I've put a 1 under each of the commissioners in terms of who's been selected. So you have a quick visual going across the row. After that, I have also put together a table where I have inputted the demographic profiles for LA diversity of each of your slates. Again, for a point of reference. And then after that, you'll see I've summarized the comments you have all inputted into the survey in terms of your candidates for easy reference. Okay. So that's the background information you have going forward. I would suggest we just start with Commissioner Obregon and we work our way through all 8 of you presenting. Unless, are there any questions before we start? I cannot see Commissioner Holtzman on the screen. Yes, Commissioner Vento.
I just wanted to say thank you, Gayla, and to the entire staff for making this quick turnaround, and to all the commissioners that did this during this holiday break. So I really just appreciate the effort that has been made to make this happen.
Well, thank you very much. And we appreciate all the time you've put into. Any other questions before we begin the review of the slates? Okay, Commissioner Obregon. You have the floor.
Thank you. If I may, if I can go to my comments, because I remember seeing one. There we go. Okay, thank you. And I guess somewhat holistically, I was trying to apply, but a couple things I was trying to get, of course, more women, and I was also trying to get younger, and also territorial kind of separation. Um, I like Priya and Apolonio Morales. Those two people are technically, I think, both from District 4. And when I was trying to get Apolonio because I think, was in the Laverne area, way out there. Whereas Priya is like South Pasadena. So South Pasadena is kind of almost metro. And when I say that, she's on the border. She and Miss Segura are one of the commissioners. They're probably just a couple miles apart, but they're in different districts, supervisor districts, and yet probably the commonality between El Sereno and South Pass and Alhambra and everything, though the line kind of goes there. So I was trying to get people that kind of were a little close to the borders and stuff. Carolyn Williams, of course, and probably well qualified, increases diversity. She's a lady, and she's on the west side, sort of, kind of like Southwest Hawthorne. She kind of matches with the South area there. That's more representative of that area. She being Franklin, is in border area too. So, and the two communities aren't. So when we proceed to start to create new ones, I wanted a few ad hocs in a way, I guess. I kind of wanted 2 from each existing district that were qualified, and that's of course 10. And then we have 4 others, and the 4 others I was trying to use in a kind of ad hoc kind of way, trying to spread it out a little territorially, and some of them kind of were close to other areas, and that was really my sense. So I think I have 4 women here, and I think I have a couple young people, younger, let's say that younger than 50. I think Polonio and Priya kind of fit that. Okay. And I think we even get to touch on a little bit of the LGBTQ community with one of the representatives that is selected here. So I was trying to be balanced in the sense of 10, 2 from each district, and then 4 kind of ad hoc, and trying to create the diversity that would be good for us. I think that's about all I had to say.
Okay, and just as a point of reference for everyone else, you'll see on this table, you'll see Commissioner Obregon's just a profile. So you will see here the mix in terms of the political party affiliation, the gender, the age distribution, which you talked about, aiming for slightly younger. You'll see the race, ethnicity, and then you'll see the distribution by supervisorial districts. So that will help you all to have an overview as well. Okay, let's move on to, since Commissioner Orpinella Segura cannot join us till 11, let's move on to Commissioner Holtzman. And just let me know which slide you want me to put up. Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
No, I'm not next on the list.
I was going left to right on
But
the
I
slide.
wanted to know if we're going to discuss each slate as it's presented, or if we're going to go back through them once Commissioner Orpinella Segura comes on.
It's up to you all. I thought maybe you'd like to hear everybody's overview before you discuss them. But if you want to discuss them slate by slate, let me know. What would you all prefer to do? Other commissioner thoughts? Commissioner Obregon.
Maybe like, of course, I had just spoken, and if there's, I guess, any maybe apparent weakness or of the 6 selections, if there's any, maybe we can put another, how about this person, just to kind of just, because I do see the names are pretty repeated. So we have a lot of similarities in all the people, except there's a couple, three that might be a little deviation, and might be wise to touch on it for just a moment, but not have just to touch it, because there might be a sticking out question by one of the commissioners regarding the whatever.
Might I suggest that maybe we have questions for clarification as each slate's presented, but conversation that has to do with really debate about different ones. Maybe we hold it to everybody's had a chance to present their slates. Does that seem reasonable?
Mhm.
I sort of see heads nodding. Are there points of clarification regarding Commissioner Obregon's slate? Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
Just briefly, Commissioner Obregon, you mentioned the LGBTQ community. How does your slate touch on that?
You're on mute, Commissioner Obregon.
I believe Syra Soto had it in her essay. I have to go back. I did see that mentioned there in her essay, and I'm not saying she was from that community. She might have mentioned it and how her awareness of them, but I'm not sure of her exactly in that way. So I felt with Syra we had it. And talking out of turn, I wouldn't want to speak on any of the others. I think I felt that from remembering it, I have to review my notes and the essays, because I did read their essays again.
Commissioner Maeda, I saw your hand go up.
It's Dorina Wong also represents that community.
When you say that community, Dorina represents Carolyn's community?
No, the LGBTQ community.
There you go. And I think I might have seen it more than just Syra, but I think Dorina Wong, like you just mentioned. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Thank you.
Oh, Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, Dorina Wong doing her public comment. She made public comment and she did mention that representation of the community.
Any other questions or points of clarification on Commissioner Obregon's slate? Okay, Commissioner Holtzman, I have you next on the list.
Oh yeah, because we're skipping Orpinel Segura because she's not here.
That's correct. And you can let me know if you want this slide up or another slide up. Just let me know.
How about the slide with my comments?
Okay.
There we go. Okay, let's go. Let's take them in. Well, first of all, we'll take the individuals in each order. But first of all, overall, in terms of ethnic racial diversity, my slate, I believe, includes nominating basically 1.5 Latino candidates, because Sarah Eastwood is mixed race, half Mexican American, and Apollonio Morales, of course, is fully Latino. And then I think then that makes 2.5 whites, basically. Sarah Eastwood counting for 1/2, and both of the Republican nominees I put on my slate are also white. And then the remaining 2 are African American or Black. So I think I have a good ethnic diversity happening right there. So as to the individual commissioners, with Apollonio Morales, I think one thing others haven't mentioned about him, he got so many public comments, I just don't know how supportive, I just don't know how we could possibly move forward without adding him to the commission. But it's the faith community voice that he would bring to the table, involved with that othering and belonging project that he mentioned in his essay. I think that's important because a large amount of civic activity centers around communities of faith. Dan Wood, also touches on the LGBT community, because he may not be a member of that community, but he, as a lawyer, he achieved one of its most important ever victories. He was the lawyer who beat the don't ask, don't tell policy that prohibited people from talking about their actual sexual orientation and serving in the US military at the same time. So he's very impressive there. He's done a lot of pro bono work, meaning not paid work for various organizations, community, including the inner city law center. So he touches on the inner city sorts of concerns. He's very impartial, serving as a volunteer judge among his many other activities. He has a non-binary kid. They, I don't know what pronouns they prefer, but that's another touching, another aspect of touching on the LGBT community, or queer, or whatever. He has a member of a minority gender for sure in his family. As I might say, do I. My former niece is now non-binary and goes by they. My brother's oldest kid. Dan Wood also had a daughter who worked on the state redistricting for congressional districts last time around. I don't know, I couldn't really tell from his essay what the context was there, if she was actually a commissioner. I don't think she was. Otherwise, he would have mentioned both congressional and state offices. Maybe she was working for a community organization. Maybe she was actually a consultant to the California CRC. But so he knows about redistricting for sure. And when I say he knows a lot of LA, literally in his essay, he pointed out that his friends call him, get this, Mr. LA. So, and that's just not just the city, that's the county. So since I think we need 2 Republicans to add, and I think he's my top Republican. I think even though, this might throw off the gender balance of my slate a little bit, instead of 5 and 1, I have 4 and 2, 4 men, 2 women. I think he's a valuable, very valuable addition to what we're doing here. So, and then the next one I have is Elizabeth Johnson. And as you can see, it's not only African-American, she's worked with senior communities and the communities of people with disabilities. I know from my work with the League of Women Voters and on electoral systems that the disability community is hugely interested in voting systems, ways of voting, access to polling places and voting in general. So having someone with a connection to that community would be great. That community has been known to lobby hard and even sue to further its interests. So I think it's very important to have that. She's worked on affirmative action. We're essentially doing affirmative action sort of here today, while in considering making sure we have a commission that looks like the rest of the county, looks like the county. What else? So she worked for LA, the city, LA DWP. She did work for LA County Health Services, but it looks like she's, that's past tense, that she's retired. So there's no conflict of interest because she's working for a county agency. I mean, if someone's actively working for a county agency, I think that would be a conflict of interest. But anyway, she's worked in Inglewood, worked with Inglewood, and I don't know if we have anybody who's from that area, but she's also got great number skills just because she's been a bank teller. And I guess because she was a bank teller, she was able to serve as a community-based organization's treasurer for several such organizations. And be nice to have someone anyway to look at our budget and see how we might direct our spending. She's also a teacher of conflict resolution. She would be great, I think, on our commission to serve in a sort of mediation role when and if we have disagreements. She might even be a good chair because of that experience. In terms of geographic awareness and diversity, all right, so she's been involved with fair lending. She was actually deciding about loans for something I don't have it written down here. And she grew up near housing projects. Her family owned a store near housing projects. She knows mixed areas, but the fair lending thing is huge because redlining practices in the past, and that combined with those restrictive covenants and the deeds are really what mapped out the sort of segregation within our county historically. So she understands that, and I think she's worked to help break that down. So I think that's great. Okay, so Maria Williams Slaughter, also African American, I believe, sort of could hold down the south end of the county there with her involvement in Long Beach. She's also not a lawyer, engineer with an MBA, has PhD in education management, where she's worked on data-heavy programs and projects. So very strong on numbers and looking at census data for us and other overlays, I suppose, on our maps. Again, she's really good on impartiality, having served as a discipline officer. She's good on linguistic diversity. She actually started a program for English as a second language learners. And she gets bonus women credits, if you ask me. Bonus women credits because she's been a faculty advisor to a feminist organization and served on a body for Cal State Long Beach on the status of women. And she's worked for a printing company and worked on its diversity council. So she's sort of like got some extra oomph on economic and gender diversity. Mary Kenny is my second choice Republican. And again, I think we really should be putting two more Republicans on our panel instead of just one. She is retired. She's white herself, but has worked with the Chinese American community through her working with the East-West Bank. She's the East-West Bank, she mentions in her essay, is a designated minority serving bank that serves the Chinese American community. And of course, if you go to the San Gabriel Valley, it is all over the place. So she's got her business, her experiences in business, financial, insurance, real estate transactions. She is a lawyer too, as is Dan Wood. I think those are the only two lawyers I put on my slate. But I know I'm a lawyer too, but I may go inactive next year. I know there's been some concern that we're too lawyer heavy. And anyway, in case you want to know why I'm doing this in such detail, that's partly so we can help run out the clock until our 8th commissioner can join us. But the last one is Sarah Eastwood, who wasn't in the top 23 when we used that screening tool at the beginning of the process. So she may not be on some of the slides, but I think she'd be great. She's a young, well, relatively youngster. I think she's like 27 years old. When I was 27 years old, I thought that was plenty old, but little does she know now. Anyway, and she is queer herself, of gender. The youth I mentioned, she's a renter, which, you know, I think is a very important interest group, because the County Board of Supervisors can certainly enact ordinances that have to do with rent control and rental housing and proper, landlord-tenant relations. So that's good. She's a writer of Metro, and Metro is basically a county service. By doing that, and apparently doesn't own a car, maybe she does, but by being a regular Metro writer, that's something unique that could come to the table in terms not just of being interest group, but in terms of geography, because it pretty much, people who are Metro writers are a little bit limited in their geographic scope, but have interest in expanding that, I'm sure. As I mentioned before, she's mixed race, half white, half Mexican American. She's a high school teacher. She does, and does, as she put it, data-driven work. So she'd be fine for numbers and carving out districts, etc. She has a master's degree in special education from Loyola Marymount. And I think that means she's actually a special education teacher. And if so, God bless her, because that is a tough road to hoe. But I'm not sure about that. In terms of her legal acumen, she's not a lawyer, but she knows education law. You really have to know that if you're in special education, because there's laws at every level governing special education and disability accommodations, etc. She says she knows voting law as well. And in terms of impartiality, she points out that she listens to varied opinions in her life. I don't really know how far that goes. Finally, as you can see there, she lived in 3 different areas in Los Angeles County. I think one of them was the downtown area. So she actually knows a lot, could bring a great breadth of knowledge. And just by virtue of being one of the top 60, as the Registrar-Recorder's office chose, she's qualified. What I really should have said at the beginning is all of the candidates we've been considering at this point are all perfectly well qualified to serve on the commission. We're just choosing which ones we want based on gaps or proportionality. So, if any of them are listening now, thank you for applying. I know at least one of you, and to that person, I will just say, I'm sorry, it doesn't look like you fit in to what we need to round out the commission, but I would have loved to have worked with you. So anyway, that's my message, my small point of personal privilege at the end there. That's my slate. And to my fellow commissioner, I'll say, I'm totally willing to, compromise, negotiate. It's not going to be me voting for my slate or nothing. So, all right, there you have it. I will cede the floor now and hope I've taken enough time.
So Commissioner Vento, I believe you have a question of clarification, followed by Maeda.
Yeah. So I just want to say, Commissioner Holtzman, I appreciate what you just did. I just want to share something about Dan Wood. So I agree that we should add a Republican, but I felt the only reason I didn't put Dan Wood on my top slate is because he was too close to Commissioner Stetcher's residency. That is one of the reasons why I looked at it. The other Republicans, the other 3 Republicans I looked at was Tim Forrest. He's up in, I forget what he's further away in another district. And then Mark Mendoza, I thought was a good Republican to get. But I also wanted to point out, and I agree with you on this one, Mary Your Mary Kenny, what drew me is she's female and a Republican from Palos Verdes. And I just thought, so I just wanted to share with you in terms of we're looking at, I agree with you adding another Republican for sure. But that's one of the reasons why I didn't pick Dan Woods is because of his proximity to Commissioner Stessers.
Okay, Commissioner Vento, I appreciate your thought there. I have a little more insight on that overlap to share that might help answer your concern. Santa Monica, I used to live near there. I used to bicycle through there all the time. Used to work out at these stairs that go up, down and up to and from the Santa Monica Canyon. That zip code is pretty wealthy. And it's really got an overlay of two communities of politically active people who are often donors and often hold fundraisers and what have you in that area. So I've seen as President Obama drove by in that neighborhood for a fundraiser. I've been to progressive fundraisers in that neighborhood. But also I should point out that what I'm trying to say is there's two completely diverse communities that they just happen to live next to each other. And I should point out that the very first fundraiser that Donald Trump decided to have after he'd been insisting that he would fund his campaign entirely with his own resources was in that zip code along San Vicente Boulevard, not too far from progressive fundraisers, not too far from the Obama fundraiser. But it was at a very wealthy friend of his who ended up running his Trump's inauguration committee. His name escapes me at this minute, but you will hear it in the news. I remember hearing, about how the Secret Service and cops were on horseback clearing the area. Anyway, I don't have any problem with the geographical overlap there because politically, the two have got to be night and day. In that neighborhood, you're either strong one way or strong the other way. So there you have it.
So Commissioner Mayeda, I think you have a question of clarification.
I do. So Commissioner Holtzman, first, thank you for the thinking outside the box, as it were, outside of the other consensus that had been developed by the other candidates. It's interesting to hear your views. I do have a question though about what consideration you gave to increased diversity in terms of the representation of Asian Americans. You don't have any listed there, and I recall in one of the past meetings, you made a point to say that the fact that someone says they can represent a community is not the same as being a part of that community, and the latter was more significant. So I don't think, although Mary Kenny may have other virtues, and I agree that she would provide some benefit in terms of geographic representation, et cetera, I don't think the fact that she works for East West Bank really weighs much to my thinking as far as representing the Asian American community.
So to respond to that, Commissioner Maeda, let me say two things. First of all, you're right about what I said. And I agree that Mary Kenny's connection to the Chinese American community doesn't necessarily make the commission look like LA in that particular way. But the other thing is, I don't think we're really going to be able to end up doing anything other than keeping the San Gabriel Valley Asian American communities together in one district. And I really think we should. I personally, again, it's not me as being a member of an Asian American community, but I know Kathy Fung from Common Cause who's been a great advocate of independent redistricting. And I know one of her concerns is that Asian Americans haven't been represented as elected officials quite as much as perhaps they should, given their numbers. So if we leave off, say, Dorina Wong would probably be the best choice for Asian American representation. I'll promise you, I'll personally, investigate their interests and hope to protect them. But I appreciate your comment. Perhaps we can switch somebody out for Dorina Wong on my slate.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. I'd like to make sure we cover all the slates. I think it's helpful, since we've gone over Commissioner Obregon's demographics, just to give you an overview. You'll see this column here for Holtzman in terms of the mix by party. Actually, part of this is hidden on my screen, but you have the Democrat, you have one NDR, you have Republicans. You see the gender mix here, 4 and 2. You see an age distribution in this column. You see the demographic analysis, and then at the bottom you have the supervisorial district. And again, just a general overview.
Again, on that, I would assign half, an extra half Latin and take away a half white for Sarah Eastwood.
So actually, I was finding on a number of the applications, they would list one of the two mixes pointed out, so we could update that. Commissioner Franklin, I believe you are next, and let me know what slide you like me. Do you want the comments put up again?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, here it is.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I appreciate public comments. I really listened to the comments of the public, and which swayed some of my decision, along with reading the applications and so forth, and looking at diversity, age, and gender, and making sure that the commission is rounded out and look like the County of Los Angeles. So that in mind, Apollonia Morales, I appreciate the public comments that were made on his behalf. What swayed me was the fact of looking at getting more commissioners that were in the age group, of the younger age group, age category. Plus, Apollonia is Mexican American, and doing the initial overview of the comments made by the public, there were recommendations that at least 3 Mexican Americans serve on the commission. So that in mind, he's 42, he's Mexican American, he's a strong community advocate, and that's why I'm recommending him. Carolyn Williams, an African American, she's a woman. In District 2, she has a wealth of experience in data analysis, community-based organization, and working with top-notch community organizations as well, and understanding figures. That's why I chose her, and we really need someone additional living in the Inglewood, Hawthorne area. Dan Woods, I chose him, 1, because he's a Republican. 2, he mentioned in his application about litigation, and he made a comment that in the end, there might be some litigation as it relates to this commission. So that's why I chose him. Dorina Wong, she's Chinese American. She has strong analytical skills, worked on propositions, and has understanding in that area. Priya Sridharan, she's Indian / Asian. And I thought that that would be a strong rounding out this commission with someone in that diverse category. Also, she's 45 years old. Stephen Collin, there was a comment, I believe, the other day from the public indicating that there was no Native American on this commission, being recommended on the commission. So I chose him actually from Maria Williams Slaughter because of him being a Native American. And he is a community advocate as well. So those are my recommendations.
Any questions, points of clarification? I see Commissioner Vento's hand.
Commissioner Franklin, I appreciate your feedback. So I looked at Stephen Collin as well, and I just wanted to share this with you. In terms of his application, I didn't feel it was very strong. I don't know if any of you guys looked at it, but he just kind of listed bullet points. There wasn't a lot of like dialogue or sharing, and that's why I didn't consider him compared to Maria Williams Slaughter. I just wanted to share this with you. I mean, some of the candidates really took the time to go into depth with their stories and share their feedback. So I just wanted to share that on a personal note. Like I considered Stephen Collin, but I saw his application as not being as strong or complete as the other ones. So I just wanted to share those sentences.
Correct. I agree with you, but that's why I preferenced my comments beforehand. I appreciate public comments, and that I paid attention to that. And I wanted to make sure that I offered him, Stephen Collins, as a possible candidate because of his him being a Native American.
Questions from any other, points of clarification from any other commissioners? Okay, so let's look at the demographics on the next column with Commissioner Franklin. You'll see the mix here of parties. You'll see a split, 3 female, 3 males. You'll see the age distribution. You'll see here the ethnic racial mix, and you'll see here the distribution by supervisorial district. With that, I think we should proceed with Commissioner Stetcher. And would you like me to go to your comment page? What would you like to have?
I'd like you to go back to the matrix that you just showed. That one. Yeah, thank you. I recognize in all of these that we have some impossible challenges. We can't pick real people that will give us the perfect balance across gender, location, ethnicity, party, age, different interests and skills. So I wanted to tell you which things I thought were the most important. In picking my slate, I tried to emphasize getting a balance in terms of ethnicity, race, location, and a party. And so if you look down, and I don't have a pointer, but my is 4 Democrats, 1 NDR, and 1 Republican. It's 3 we're identifying as Latin or Mexican American, 1 white, 1 Asian, 1 Black African American. And that's spread out across the supervisorial districts, which are not the most important, but if you look at the map, it's spread out across the map. So then, Gayla, would you go back to the list? That's sort of what, my comment, sorry. That's sort of what drove my list. I select, and I will try to be a little brief, since we're familiar with many of these people, and I don't need to repeat things. I included Apollonio Morales because of what we heard, but I want to just remind people that no one else realized they had the opportunity to bring recommendations and public comment. And so we might have heard an awful lot of supportive comments about other people had they been clever enough to recognize that that opportunity was there for them. So I don't want us to be overly swayed, yet reading his application, I thought he does have strengths. Carolyn Williams, we have talked about, and I think is a very strong candidate. Dan Woods and I share the same city, and I just don't think it looks good from a point of view of someone picking up the slate, the commission, if they see Santa Monica, Santa Monica. So I'm worried a lot about the sort of public perception of the richness of our slate. And I discounted Dan, despite his incredible skills, because he had the misfortune of being located so close to me. Dorina Wong is strong, but she seemed to be similar in terms of background and strengths to Priya. And they both have legal expertise, and I picked Priya on my slate. And because she's younger, she was located in a district where we didn't have as many people. And I've since learned, if you look at the Q&A, that she also is a member of the LGBTQ+ community, which broadens her appeal. Margaret Milligan, I think, is the person on my slate who does not appear as often on others. She is another attorney, so I don't want to be overly strong, but she has, her work is in campaign finance with a public interest law center. She's been broadly familiar with the county through working on the grand jury, and her work there was involved getting out all throughout the county, and she has strengths in terms of child advocacy. So I added her to my slate, and Mark Mendoza as well, who I think is a very strong candidate, and I don't know how we resolve this question about whether he has a conflict of interest or not, since he works for LA, works on projects relating to Metro and the siting of and construction of stations. And I'm not sure what constitutes a conflict of interest here. I don't think if you're a contractor for a city or the county, that should disqualify you, but I wanted to raise the question and let other people weigh in on it. And Sarah Soto, who has a lot of analytic talent and yet has been involved with the community with a focus on youth and children. And so that's my slate.
Questions of clarification? I see Commissioner Vento followed by Maeda.
So I just wanted to point something out. I agree with you on Mark Mendoza. I think that he would be a strong Republican candidate. And the only reason I didn't pick him as my first was because I was looking more for a gender balance on that one, getting married. Sarah Soto, if I correct that one, I agree with you on her. She's also on the younger age. When I say that younger, she is 40. And so she does complement some of the requirements when we talked about age, and where she resides, there's not a lot of representation.
Commissioner Maeda.
Can we ask legal counsel for a view on the conflict of interest question?
Sure. So there's two issues that I see here. One question, of course, is just, are they qualified? So do they have the statutory conflict of interest that's set forth in the code that creates the commission? And working for the county generally, whether directly or as a contractor, is not among those disqualifying positions. I will just note, just a forecast and flag for you all, that all the commissioners will be required to file a Form 700 with the Fair Political Practices Commission. This will be something that I go over with the full commission when we do our training on conflicts of interest. On those forms, there will be some disclosures that are required regarding sources of income. And so at that time, those things will be public, and there can be a more focused analysis of whether a particular source of income for a commissioner represents a disqualifying conflict of interest. But in the abstract right now, we don't know enough to say there is one.
Thank you.
Any other points of clarification? Okay, just again, you'll see here, Commissioners Stetcher's demographics. You'll see the breakdown by political party, gender split, age distribution, ethnic distribution, and then supervisorial district. And with
Can I
that,
ask before we move ahead? I noticed that for Commissioner O. Pinella Segura, the numbers don't make a lot of sense. Oh, there she is. When it's her turn, either she can explain them or you can correct them.
okay.
Thank you.
And again, we received your input by 4 o'clock yesterday. So if we have any of those corrections, just let us know. Welcome, Commissioner Orpinella Segura. I'll let you get sort of settled in before we ask you to go over your slate. We're going to move on to Commissioner Soto's slate. And Commissioner Soto, oh, I'm sorry. Let me get this in here. Commissioner Soto, I want to give a little shout out to him. He was the commissioner that provided an example of what we could post at the start of every meeting for people to wait while it's on YouTube before we actually officially started. He was the one that also has come up with the suggested template if there's a recess for us to post. So anyone watching live would not be left in suspension about what is really happening. So Commissioner Soto, I want to give you a special thank you for that. Would you prefer that I show this slide or your comments, demographics? What would you like me to display as you walk through your slate?
We could start off with the demographics. So on my slate, my focus was on trying to achieve a balance for the demographics to be as close as possible to the LA County demographics. So since we are with the 8 current commissioners, there's 6 male and 2 female. My proposal was to include 5 female and 1 male. And in terms of party affiliation, I selected 4 Democratic, 1 NDR, and 1 Republican. And I tried to spread out the age group as well as try to get a balance in ethnicity. And I also tried to even out representation through the existing supervisorial districts. So I think I selected 1 in each supervisorial district, and then I think supervisorial district 4 has 2. So I guess we could go back to my comments. I believe most of the people that I put in my slate, there's already been comments that have been made previously. I also selected Polonio Morales just for his lot of public input and his community activism. Caroline Williams, who has a lot of social networks and is a board member for a major nonprofit. I also included Dorina Wong, an attorney, and she's Chinese and has helped the LGBTQ communities. For the Republican, I included Mary Kenny, who is a female Republican, and she has also been helping veterans. So veterans, they're a group that gets overlooked. So I think that she'll bring up some insight into assisting veterans. Also included Sarah Soto, community activist as well. She's bilingual, and she works for the Children's Defense Fund in California, and she's Latina, immigrant, and LGBTQ. The final candidate is Teresa Fuentes. I included her as an attorney for the city of Pasadena, and she was legal counsel to Pasadena's redistricting task force. And that pretty much covers my comments.
So commissioners, any questions or points of clarification? I see Commissioner Vento's hand.
I agree with Commissioner Soto. You and I have lots of similar picks here. I do want to say just something. I thought Teresa Fuentes had a really strong application. The only reason I'm not 100%. I mean, I selected her, but she is from my district too. So it's kind of funny. Like Teresa Fuentes and Mark Mendoza are both from my district, and I'd love to have them there. But that would be a lot of representation from 5. But I thought Teresa Fuentes was a very, very strong candidate for this commission, and so was Sarah Soto.
Any other questions from other commissioners? Okay, let's. In terms of the demographics, Commissioner Soto has already covered them. Again, I just sort of want to highlight here. You'll see going down through the list by party, by gender, by age, by ethnicity, and then the distribution by geographic area. So Commissioner Maeda, how would you like to proceed in sharing your slate?
The slide you have now, which is the slate of the 6 comparison. I wanted to show that because I feel that there is a tremendous consensus among the 8 in terms of our slates. And mine, I think, is very close to many of yours. So I will eventually, when it comes time, I think I'll be speaking on behalf of the sort of the consensus 5, and then I would argue that we should then wrestle with the 6, who the 6th person is. But as far as my slate is concerned, what I try to do, as everyone has indicated, is provide some balance. I thought it was very important to have gender equity as much as possible, so I selected 5. I selected 5 women and 1 man. I added 4 Democrats, 1 NDR, and 1 Republican, which I think is a rough results of rough representation of parity to the county. Added 3 Latinx, 1 African American, 1 Asian American, and 1 white candidate. I think one of the benefits of my slate was that it provides that I'm taking essentially the top 5 ranked women according to the rankings we previously did. And I recognize that that's not absolute rankings in any way, but I thought it was useful to note that the top 5 ranked women who are remaining are Dorina Wong, Teresa Fuentes, Carolyn Williams, Molly Green, and Cyrus Soto. And those are all in my list, as well as one of the highly ranked Republicans, Mark Mendoza. I think that there also is a rough balance in terms of the representation in the districts, with the exception that I did not add anyone from District 4, but I recognize that Apollonio is someone that I perhaps overlooked initially. I was moved by the significant outpouring of community support that we heard. Went back and took a look at his application, and I would have regarded him as an alternate in mine, but I'm happy to include him in if there seems to be consensus to include him in. But in general, my slate is very, very comparable to the consensus 5. And I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, as well as to, when it comes time to discuss how we move from what I think is a consensus to the final 6.
Questions of clarification for Commissioner Maeda? Okay, I don't see any hands, so I think we'll go on to Commissioner Vento.
Gayla, you can just stay right there on this stage. Everybody, I think I share a lot of crossover with a lot of you. I'm not going to go through in detail because I think we've heard a lot about the different candidates. I will just reiterate this. I did select Mary Kenny as the first Republican only because she was a female and are trying to get more of a gender balance. But I would be open for Mark Mendoza if you want, and I would be open for Tim Wood because of the location that he comes from. And I was, again, I was listening to the public comments about Apollonio Morales, and that's one of the reasons. And I thought Dorina Wong was a very strong candidate, and so was Maria Williams and Carolyn Williams. So I think that we share as a group some similar areas. And so I don't have much to say other than that, simply because we've had a lot of conversation about the other candidates. But I will say that I felt like all of the candidates were well qualified, and this was not an easy process. So,
questions for points of clarification for Commissioner Vento? I do not see any hands, and I also want to apologize. I had gone over the demographics for each of the other commissioners, and here you might want to focus more specifically on Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Vento's mix in terms of party affiliation, gender, and you can go on down through the column. Okay. So with that, Commissioner Orpinella Segura, we'd like to go over your slate. And you need to let me know if this is the slide you want to talk from, or the demographics, or your comments.
My comments, please. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience in my schedule. I really appreciate your patience, and thank you so much, Gayla and the team, for putting this together on a very tight deadline. I appreciate your work. Just catching up, I did see that my slate had some commonalities with the commission that we have, or the 8 members. Can everyone hear me? I'm seeing a notification that my internet is kind of faulty. Yes? Okay, thank you. So the points that I want to share in selecting my slate, something that I kept in mind was diversity and background. I did share this in our previous meeting. I think we have strong candidates. We have several who have law backgrounds. So I would just ask the commission to keep in mind to diversify who we have in terms of background, so that we're able to have different lenses coming from different people. Christopher Castaneda, I believe he has the same zip code as myself. I placed him as my top or as my pick for the slate because of his background in mapping tools. I think that could be useful. But I'm open to other suggestions from the commission. Yeah, and I think the rest are very comparable to everyone else's. For the Republican representation, I listed Mark Mendoza. I noted that he has worked on policies addressing displacement. I think that's an important background to have in our commission. Yeah, that's really the only points that I wanted to share at this time.
So since you just arrived, Commissioner Orpinella Segura, we've asked the commissioners to ask questions of clarification, and we're going to hold sort of debate until after everybody had presented. So questions of clarification. I don't see any hands going up. Commissioner Vento.
Commissioner Segura, I appreciate your time and effort on this. And I just want to say the one reason why I didn't put my endorsement behind Christopher Castaneda is because of his location to you in terms of that. That was just one thing I just wanted to share. I thought he was a strong candidate and everything like this, but I just thought it was just too close for representation. So I was just kind of looking for a broader, but I appreciate your time and effort.
Thank you. And I do agree. We share the same zip code. So I'm open to other nominees, given the proximity of our zip codes.
And I also just point out on Christopher Castaneda's application, for some reason it was checked female. On the Registrar-Recorder, they had received notification from Christopher that he is indeed male. And I also reached out to him by email and he again confirmed it. So there was that difference. But any other questions for Commissioner Orpinella-Segura? Yes, Commissioner Obregon.
The idea of, I think the Mark Mendoza being in the same zip code, and you're in District 4, am I right? What supervisor district are you actually in?
I'm in District 1. I share.
Okay, yes.
It's Christopher Castaneda.
El Sereno.
Yes.
And you're on the border is what I was noticing, and I was noticing that Priya happened to be just across the border. It's not very far. She was South Pasadena, if I'm not mistaken. And that was kind of what part of the territorial kind of idea. When I look at those two districts, I really see a lot of, I don't want to say gerrymandering, but it seems very much a lot of hand creation in creating that separation from 1 to District 4. And I would almost consider you on the border there, even though, and Priya, you're both very close to each other, but you're in different current districts. And I could easily see that area will be changed, and some of that, we're going to have to look at that, how we draw that. And so people who are kind of on the border can kind of help us, kind of touches on both sides. So again, I think that's why I lean to Priya. Priya kind of, in seeing her background and her young, and I thought it was a balancing territorially and supervisory district wise. And I'm just making some comments there. Maybe you can touch on that also.
Commissioner Vento, let Commissioner Orpinella-Segura, then I'll call on you, okay? And also I will just mention to everyone, Ty has updated the map, so we will go through those as also background information for you. Go ahead, Commissioner Orpinella-Segura.
Thank you, Commissioner Obregon, for your feedback. I thought Priya had a strong background. The reason I did not place her on my slate, I'm going to go to my notes, if you can bear with me. Again, she has a very strong background. I noted that she was an attorney, and while she has strong connections with the AAPI community, in terms of representation, I thought Dorina Wong, who is also an attorney, shares experiences within the AAPI group. So I thought maybe they were similar in background, and that was the reason I went with Dorina Wong. I thought perhaps she could assist us. And Priya was, although had similar backgrounds, I selected Dorina Wong. And I'm not sure exactly, or maybe Gail, you can show us the map so I can see where Priya
Do you want to do that now, or let's do the maps collectively, if that's okay with you, both Commissioner Obregon and Commissioner Orpanelli-Segura?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Vento.
So Commissioner Obregon and Commissioner Segura, I appreciate your feedback. And one of the reasons why I chose not to elevate Priya on my list is because of the location where she was. That's why I opted for Sarah Soto. This is one of the reasons why I looked at it, because I think Priya is a very strong candidate as well. But this is one of the reasons why I picked Sarah Soto, is where her relationship is in terms of that district and in that area. So that's why I brought that into consideration.
Are there any other commissioners with points of clarification? Okay. So I want to just go back and say we have a really compelling slate. Everybody's had a chance to present an overview of why they're slate. This table does give you sort of a visual display of the slates by commissioner. Again, you've seen the demographics. Priscilla's now has been added to the list, and you've gone through this numerous times, so I don't think I need to go through it further. What I wanted to also share with you as just some background is just, you know, where there seem to be some patterns. This is not in any way trying to tell you what your final slate should be, but there were 5 candidates where there was at least 4 to 7 of you who had them on the slate. I have included in Appendix B what that demographic profile would look like. And I think to Commissioner Maeda's point, this is what he was referring to as a consensus slate. It by no means determines the final. It does give you flexibility if you wanted to look at the next 3 in terms of the demographics. And I'm happy to go through those numbers as well at this time if you would like to see them. Can I just sort of, would people like to go to Appendix B, or would you rather wait? Okay, so again, it's just to try to show you where there were some patterns. Sorry, I have to, oh, I also have in Appendix A, each of your comments by candidate, if you wanted to look at the candidates' comments across commissioners. Appendix B, I'll just call it a consensus slate. Basically, this is the profile of the people in this category. When I filled in the table, it does give you a mix in terms of party. This is sort of the target numbers here to the right in this column here. Again, you are to reflect as nearly as possible as you can. It gives you an idea of the gender mix. It gives you an idea thereof by age and ethnicity. And then finally, supersorial district. Okay. If you look at the next 3 on the list, interestingly, they're all women. They each represent a different party affiliation, which gives you some flexibility there. By the 3 women, if you add 1 more, that would make it 6 females and 8 males on the commission. Each represent different races and ethnicities, and 2 are in supersorial district 4, and 1 is in supersorial district 5, which would weight more heavily the number of people coming from supersorial district 4. But to Commissioner Obregon's point, those district lines are going to be all revisited anyway, and you've met the requirement of 1 per supersorial district. So that's that background. The other piece of information we could go over at this point are the maps, which Ty is updated, and then discuss any just sort of points of clarification before you receive public comment. So should we run through the maps now, or are there any questions sort of on sort of this analysis of where there was some commonality, some trends? Commissioner Obregon, I see your hand go up.
Yeah, I think it would be good to see the map. I think you had a map that showed the original 8 and the added 6, or the candidates for adding the 6. So
Okay.
yes, I'd like to see that map if possible.
Why don't we go through the maps? I'm going to ask Ty, who's developed the maps, to walk you through. We do have as a starting point what the current district lines are with the cities for reference points. Commissioner Holtzman has his hand up before Ty speaks. Go ahead, Commissioner Holtzman.
Just briefly, my understanding from work with organizations, et cetera, about the word consensus. The word consensus, when you're working towards consensus, you're working towards no disagreement, zero disagreement, 100% agreement, or at least abstaining. So I wouldn't actually use the word consensus
Okay.
at this point.
Do you have a better word you'd like to use for the trending
I
patterns?
don't know, popular.
Popular? Do people prefer the word popular?
No, I prefer the word consensus.
I'll echo that.
It will be a consensus when we finally vote on them, or it will be a decision.
But I believe it's a independent legal counsel. There would need to be 5 out of the 8 votes to support a final slate that would be adopted.
Yes, you need a majority of the 8 to approve the final slate.
At this
So
point,
the term consensus does not mean all 8. It means candidate for potential motion or whatever. Go ahead.
I mean, and the
I
other
think
thing is-
plurality.
Yeah, plurality is fine. The other thing is that we're not actually working towards consensus on individuals. We're going to try and work towards consensus, or at least a majority agreement on slates. So
Right.
the whole focus here on individuals is a little misguided to me at this point, since we're considering slates, not individuals.
Okay. You just went mute, Commissioner Holtzman. I assume you had finished your comment. Any other comments before Ty goes through the maps? Ty, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. So Gayla, can you go ahead and go to the next slide? So we've updated the map so that the color coding is more consistent, taking out the initial process of the top candidate ideas in terms of your rating system. So here we can see that blue is still where the zip codes are for commissioners, current commissioners. Green is where there are potential candidates. And the red is the one zip code where Commissioner Orpanela Segura is and one other candidate. So this, again, we took off the layer for the districts to make this a little bit more broad, but also to make sure that you all have an idea of how the zip codes are spread across the county. So moving on to the next slide, just so that we can zoom in so you all can see where each of the candidates are located. We did this by district just so that you can see it more zoomed in. So again, the color coding system has changed where blue is still where commissioners are currently located. Red is where there is a commissioner and a candidate. And then green is where there is a candidate. And it is worth noting though, in West Covina, on the west side of District 1, I'm sorry, the east side of District 1, James Soma has withdrawn, and that was discussed in the previous meeting. And then to the next slide, in District 2.
1 second, Ty. I think it also includes the original 23 plus the names that were added in the last, so you could still have all of the displays in front of you. I believe
Correct.
there's a question from Commissioner Stetcher.
I
before we
found,
proceed.
never mind, I found it. I couldn't see what the asterisk meant next to Rosalinda Luogo, but it's below the word district.
Yes, so an asterisk refers to zip codes that are straddling multiple districts. And then also, thank you, Gayla. This has also been updated to include the 2 candidates that weren't in the original top 23. Sarah Eastwood, and apologies, I believe I added an H to the end of her name when there shouldn't be an H. And then you'll see in District 4, I also included Stevan Collins. So moving on to District 2. Here we can see the 2 commissioners, Commissioner Mayeda, Commissioner Franklin, located in the blue zip codes. And then the candidates that, the current candidates in green. And then to District 3, same spill where Commissioner Stetcher is located in the blue in Santa Monica. And then the zip codes coded in green are the current candidates. And then in District 4, Commissioner Soto in the northern part, the zip code, the blue zip code that's further north. Also included Commissioner Franklin's zip code here, though Commissioner Franklin is listed in District 2, but the majority of her zip code is in District 4. So just wanted to include that here as well for frame of reference. And then again, we see that here that Esteban Collin is also added in Redondo Beach. And then for District 5, we have Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Vento. Commissioner Vento located further north and Commissioner Holtzman located in Burbank. And then the 3 candidates that are listed in District 5. And those are the maps.
So we should, I mean, are there any points of clarification? Because the order is going to be, once you have your points of clarification, you will receive public comment. And then you will then discuss in more detail what a slate of 6 possibilities might be for you to consider going forward. I know it's been an hour and a half. I don't know if you want a break before you receive public comments. If you have questions now, you want to receive public comments, then maybe take the rest and then come back. I'm looking to you all for your guidance of your preference. Commissioner Franklin?
I would like to hear public comments now.
Okay, Commissioner Stetcher, I saw your hand go up. Okay, I see thumbs up to hear public comments now. Okay. And then we'll see how you feel in terms of taking a break at that point. So for public comments, some people who were at the December 26th meeting, you learned about this protocol we are now using. This is the opportunity for the public to address. If you wish to speak, do provide in the Q&A button of your screen the following information. Complete it as though you're completing a public comment card. We'd like to know the official spelling of your name. Indicate you want to speak, your name and your affiliation organization, if any. If you're on the telephone, you would press *9 to raise your hand, and Ty, who is the host of coordinating this, would then recognize you. When it is your turn to speak, you would press *6. Again, in the interest of time, we are limiting comments to 1 minute. Now, if you do not wish, and when you begin your speaking, do repeat your name for the people who are on the phone and for the public and the commissioners to hear, and the affiliation. If you feel comfortable turning on your video at that time, you may. If you do not wish to speak, you can enter public comment through Q&A button by providing, again, your name, affiliation, and public comment. You can either make a public speaking comment, or you can do the comment through Q&A, and we'll capture all of those, but we're not going to we will not have people speak and do a reading out of the public comment, which was something we did this last time. And then we'll follow that by any public correspondence received and posted. So, Ty, do we have speakers?
Currently, there are no attendees that have submitted any indication that they are interested in making a public comment. We do have one submitted written public comment, though. Okay, so I will read the comment. It's from Nancy Diaz. Dear Commissioners, after reviewing the Excel candidate assessments, it appears that the 52 remaining candidates were not fairly reviewed by an equitable number of evaluators, which raises disproportionate rankings. There are candidates who were evaluated only by 2 commissioners versus others who had 4 or more. The number of evaluator and ratings can have a statistical difference, which raises concerns of not applying the same evaluation standards during the selection. The same criteria needs to be used across all 52 candidates, and at least a quorum of commissioners review each candidate and rate them accordingly to ensure an equitable, fair, and consistent process is applied. The latest rankings from Saturday's meeting is also very heavy with attorneys, 60 and over years of age, and Mexican American, not necessarily representing the diversity of Latinos in LA County. Also, there are several overlapping or close to proximity candidates being considered. Less representation east of LA County, Pomona, West Covina, Diamond Bar, Finally, who is assessing conflicts of interest, as some have worked in
1
state
minute.
or county roles?
And I believe there are no more public comments, so we will now move on to the discussion among the commissioners for a shortened slate of 6. And I will turn to you to see how you want to proceed. I see Commissioner Holtzman's hand is up.
Time unmute. Here we go. I was saving something. I don't know. I'm unmuted. My screen is frozen. I hope you can hear me. Here we go. That's better. I'm amazed that we all have internet and power after last night's storm. I just wanted to say that I am sympathetic to the public comment just then about how the initial screening tool we used was not balanced amongst numbers of evaluators, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to say, to the commenter and the commission that now we've kind of moved past using that tool, and many of us have gone to look at pretty much all the candidates, or at least the candidates under consideration. So let's not, if we would have left the survey open for more input from the commissioners, et cetera, you'd see that a lot more commissioners have looked at each candidate, and we've kind of moved beyond using that tool. Now we're on to another stage.
Let me also ask, are we okay to continue, since there was only one public comment, to continue this discussion without the break? I'm seeing thumbs up. Commissioner Maeda, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was going to also echo Commissioner Holtzman's view that that was an initial screen, but it's always been open for any of us to go back and review others. Some of us did review every single application. Others went back to look at additional applications, and in many cases brought new candidates to the fore. So I understand from a statistical point of view the concern, but I don't think it should throw out everything that we've done. I mean, I think we have in fact grappled with the majority of the candidates that are the strongest ones for our consideration.
Commissioner Obregon.
I think I'm going to comment on 2 areas. Sorry. Well, really just one. In us trying to reach a consensus, I almost felt that we were at the consensus because we, I think, have 5 candidates that I think, I felt there was 5, and that we had the next 3 seemed very grouped together. And if we could try to work on that, which one of those 3 should be the 6th? Yes, she brought that up there. So, I kind of feel that those 5, gosh, and then of the next 3, which one should be the 6th person? They're all 3 women, so we needed another woman, and that would fit that. And then whatever other issues we might want to discuss. But I almost felt that in reviewing everything, when I was reviewing it last night, I felt, boy, we have 5. Who's the 6th? And then of course the alternates. I mean, I don't know if we are gonna go with 3 alternates or 1, but I'd almost say those next 3, the one we pick, and then the alternate or so. And that's all I wanted to say on that.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Vento.
Yes, thank you. I was under the impression for the alternates, we were going to do that after we get the slate of 6, or I'm sorry, the slate of 14, correct?
That is correct. It has to be decided by the full 14 commissioners. And that'll be part of the process of developing your bylaws. Keeping in mind that you have done a lot of work, and that this pool of, candidates may be ones that you as a commission of 14 may want to look at. You have yet to decide, is it 2 alternates, 3 alternates? Do we want 1 per supervisorial district? But again, you've done a lot of work, and I would propose you share that with the other 6 commissioners when they're part of the full group, if you collectively decide to have alternates. Commissioner Stetcher.
In the spirit of Commissioner Obregon's comments, I move that we select Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollonio Morales, Syra Soto, and Mark Mendoza as additional commissioners for the LA County Citizens Redistricting Commission. That's 5 slots, and then we can discuss the 6th.
Sorry, is there a second, Commissioner Vento?
I was just wondering if we could just take that break before we go into that. It's a bathroom break I'm asking
That's
for.
fine. I understand. How many people would like a 5-minute break? Why don't we take a 5-minute break? It's been long, so think about it. And I will put this up for the people on YouTube to know we're taking a brief recess.
And I can withdraw the motion until we return.
Or I can just have you repeat it when we come back,
Okay.
whichever. So I have 11:40. Let's reconvene at 11:40. I'm just going to announce we have about 1 more minute before a 5-minute break is up. I have 11:45. If the commissioners could please return so we could resume our meeting. Please turn on your videos. We're still waiting for independent legal counsel and a few more commissioners. We have 6 of our 8 commissioners here. 7? I think we're missing Commissioner Vento. I would suggest, Commissioner Stetcher, if you could go ahead. I believe you're in the midst of making a motion.
Thank
We'll
you.
resume our meeting.
All right. Let me say, I agree entirely with Commissioner Holtzman that we should not be picking on the basis of popularity, that we should not be picking individuals, we should be picking a slate. And yet, when I look at the names that came up most often across the 8 of us, the top 5 make a very good slate in terms of representation, the characteristics we're trying to get on the commission. And so therefore, I would move that we appoint, I'm not sure what our function is, select Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollonio Morales, Syra Soto, and Mark Mendoza as commissioners. And then we have a discussion about the 6th commissioner separately and decide which of those features we want to have to round out the slate.
Is there a second? Commissioner Orpanella Segura?
I second the motion.
Okay. Do we want discussion? I believe we have Commissioner Holtzman's hand.
So Commissioner Stetcher says he agrees with me, but yet he doesn't follow what I was suggesting. So Commissioner Stetcher, I have a request for you, a question for you. I do want to consider whole slates. Would you consider amending your motion to complete the slate, add a 6th candidate, so we can use the whole slate as a point of discussion and move on from there?
I would consider amending the motion to add Mary Kenny as the 6th candidate.
So would that be
And
acceptable to the second?
And then we have a slate that we could discuss. That adds a white Republican woman.
Is there a second to that motion or to that amendment?
So I have a comment.
Please, Commissioner Franklin.
So are you making a motion that we have 2 Republicans, 1 white female Republican, and 1 Mexican-American Republican?
The slate I'm proposing, the top 5 names and Mary Kenny would add 2 Republicans. It would. 1 Mexican-American, Mark, and 1 white Lithuanian-American, Mary. And then 1 Black candidate, 1 Chinese Asian candidate, and 3 Latin candidates.
Might I suggest that you may want to have more conversation about this before you move to a motion?
Right.
Because we really didn't have that ability. And I think this got changed when it went from, you know, possibly the 5 and what would be the 6 to round it out. It may help if I just sort of share some of the demographics of the 5 applicants that 4 to 6 commissioners were in support of. So you'll see in the tan, the column will show you the number of Democrats, NDR, and Republicans. And so in many ways, the 5 begin to round out the demographics in terms of reflecting party. In terms of gender, you are closer. It would give you 5 females and 8 males. It gives you the age distribution, and it gives you the race ethnic mix with just those 5, followed by the senatorial districts. Commissioner Holtzman.
Yeah, with all due respect, Gayla, I think you're sort of beginning to cross over the line into advocating for a particular outcome by showing us the benefits of a particular group. Can you please just leave the discussions now of characteristics of slates to the commissioners?
I am happy to do that.
Okay.
I just wanted to show the numbers because we've been doing it on all the other slates.
Yeah, so well, I think we can handle that. But the other thing is, I kind of want to go the way of having a slate on the table to start with for discussion. Because first of all, I think from my limited understanding, my limited research, that's the way the state CRC did it, which had an almost identical mandate to choose 6 new members after the 8 first members were drawn. I recall they had several slates nominated, and I saw on their site that they had a compromise slate. I don't know if that's the one that they ended up selecting. So we can, if we have something concrete to work with to start, I think that's better than much more general discussion at this point. I also am just wondering how, because the San Diego County Commission is doing this, because San Diego County Commission is supposed to, I don't even know, I've looked at the law, is supposed to be getting together at the exact same time as we in Los Angeles County are getting our commission together. But if we're just to follow the state model to get it done, which we got to get done, then maybe check with San Diego to see how they did it when they're done. That could be fine too. But I would like to have specific slate on the table to start with.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Maeda.
So I haven't heard a second for Commissioner Stetcher's amended motion. I think his initial motion may well have achieved some traction. If there's opposition to a slate of less than 6, then we shouldn't, I would suggest not having any motion along those lines. And I'm happy to advocate for that slate of 5 plus 1. But if we don't want to put that on the table as a slate and vote on that, I understand. But at some appropriate point, I'd like to talk on behalf of the 5 plurality plus 1.
So you are proposing to go back to the original motion and not do the amended motion at this time?
I'm happy to talk to that if there is a second on that motion.
Okay. Other commissioners? Commissioner Obregon.
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to that I felt we almost had a consensus on 5 and trying to reach a consensus with the 6th person is pretty much where I thought we were already at a natural impasse was with that, even though I know that the 5 are not universal between the 8 commissioners, but looking at it like this, I do see 5 as being almost a consensus, and then the 6 being what we need to strive for of which one we're going to add. So I think that goes with Commissioner Stecker's concept or motion maybe. Thank you.
Commissioner Holtzman, followed by Commissioner Franklin.
In response to that, Commissioner Obregon, I would say there's no consensus on Mark Mendoza because that's only 50%. That's not even a majority. The other 4 perhaps are approaching consensus. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe the motion should be limited to the top 4 if you're going to do that. But again, I'm not going to vote for a motion unless it includes 6.
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, my issue is the recommendation. Well, it wasn't really a recommendation, but it was an analysis in a sense regarding the makeup of the county and the demographics as it relates to Republicans, Democrats, and so forth. I can see recommending 1 Republican, but 2 Republicans and 1 being white, which would make it not looking like it's top heavy with white and not with African American, neither with an Indian, Asian. That's my issue. That's where I have an issue. The slate of, not slate, but the 5 recommendations I agree with, but the issue of the 6, who would we be recommending as far as a 6, and then recommending another Republican, which would be 2 Republicans, and increasing it with a white woman. I have an issue with that.
Commissioner Maeda, I think your hand was up, followed by Commissioner Vento. No? Commissioner Vento.
So I just wanted to ask the other commissioners this, at least this, does everybody agree with the, at least, let's just say the first 4, Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollino Morales, and Sarah Soto? Is everybody on page on that? That's what I'm just kind of curious if I mean, at least, okay. And Holtzman, you're not, Commissioner Holtzman, you're not. Okay. Does everybody agree? Let me just ask this. Does everybody agree with the top 3, Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, and Apollino Morales? I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Does everybody agree with the top 2? I'm just asking. I'm just trying to figure out some consensus here, everyone. So I'm just trying to see. So, could I just ask a couple questions? Because it seemed like a majority of you, at least from what I saw from facial expressions or hand movements, I did agree with the top 4: Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollino Morales, and Sarah Soto. How many of you agreed with those top 4 right there? Can I just see a raise of hands? Okay, so.
And let me point out, this is not an official roll call, Commissioner Vento. You are just.
Yeah, no. And I'm not putting any motions forward. I'm just trying to get an idea of where we are as a group. That's what I'm just trying to. So Commissioner Holtzman, are you the only one that didn't agree with the top 4? Am I correct on that?
I don't know. First of all, I don't agree with considering less than 6 candidates at a time because there's balance to be had. And second of all, I prefer a different African-American. I prefer Elizabeth Johnson to Carolyn Williams.
Okay.
For various reasons, which I could detail, but that's where I am right now.
So so let me just get this straight. You want us to look at 6 as a whole, at least. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's what I would like us to be discussing. Some say a slate of 6, which we could then modify, but that's what I'd like to be starting with.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher. Sorry. Commissioner Stetcher, please.
I
hit the
think
wrong
Commissioner
button.
Maeda was ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Maeda.
I think it's going to be extremely difficult to get a slate of 6 by motion to discuss because I think people are going to be resistant if it's not their exact 6 or if they're concerned about 1 or 2 others. Perhaps let me try this, and I don't know whether this will help or not, but let me try this. I do think that there is broad support for the top 4, even the top 5, given that Mark Mendoza is a Republican, and we definitely need to have at least 1 Republican in the remaining 6. Let me just state, though, I think we should all acknowledge if we're selecting candidates from scratch from the pool of, let's say, 52 candidates, we would not be having, there would be a different candidate mix, right? For me, Margaret Milligan, Dan Woods, Lawrence Harris, Christopher Castaneda would have been in that mix. But by virtue of ping pong ball lottery, accidents of gender, geography, and race, they're not going to be in the mix for me in terms of the balance. I do think that there's broad consensus, not consensus, but broad support for having Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollonia Morales, Cyrus Soto, and Mark Mendoza. If you look at just that group of 5, apart from gender, which we definitely would want, I think we should all consider having the 6th person in that group be a female. Then I think we have rough gender parity. We have pretty good parity or representation in terms of party. We have excellent representation in terms of supervisorial district. So I don't think we need to focus on adding 1 more in any particular district in order to achieve more balance. So I think we have a very nice balanced group right there. The question is what happens to the 5th? If we're going to consider adding 1 more from any one supervisorial district, I would say we should give consideration to adding 1 more in District 5. 5 is by far the largest geographically of the districts. If you look at the maps, you'll see that right now we have okay representation in that district, and in every other district, I think there is pretty good representation throughout that districts, the current districts. The one possible area where there may not be as much representation is in District 4, I guess it is, where it looks like the, District 1. Yes, so District 1 doesn't have anybody really representing the eastern or northeastern side of the district. But if you look at District 5, you'll see Mark Mendoza adds geographic diversity to District 5, as well as close to being a part of the eastern and northeastern part of District 1. So I think we're okay there. But I do think if you look at District 5, it is a very broad district. You do have 2 very outstanding candidates remaining, Teresa Fuentes and Priya Sidaran, who I think you want to consider. And these are my reasons. If you look at the changing of LA County's racial and ethnic mix, the fastest growing ethnic group is Asian Americans, followed by Latinos. That's only going to continue in the next 10 years. For Latinos or Latinx right now, we have 5 Mexican American candidates and 1 Cuban American commissioner, candidates or commissioners, if we accept the plurality 5. For Asian Americans, there's myself, Japanese American, and if we include Dorina Wong, a Chinese American. So both of us are East Asian representatives. For purposes of political power, Asian Americans have been grouped together. But actually, in terms of our different interests, characteristics, neighborhood patterns, et cetera, we're quite different. We all speak different languages, home languages, different kinds of neighborhoods and so forth. And Also, I've done a little bit of research, and I know that from there's statistics showing that from 2000 to 2017, Pakistani population increase in LA County went up by 124%. Indian American representation went up, population went up by 53%. We don't have any representation among South Asians or Southeast Asians. Whereas compared to the Latinx community, there is very significant representation among Mexican Americans already, and the other top candidates are Mexican American. We do have one Cuban American as well, Commissioner. So I would advocate that the best choice for achieving the balance is to take the 5 plurality, and add Priya, and she would be another geographically diverse candidate from District 5, which I think is a large district and can use an additional representative. And she does add a different kind of Asian American perspective to what we would have with Doreen Wong and myself. So that would be my discussion, and I'm happy to make a motion if people want to entertain that motion.
Actually, there were 2 commissioner hands up after yours, Commissioner Stetcher, followed by Commissioner Holtzman. And then you can see if, I think we continue the discussion and determine then about the motion. Commissioner Stetcher.
I was going to second the motion. I thought that was a well-reasoned argument, and it gave us a slate we could discuss as a collective slate of 6. If Commissioner Maeda will agree to make the motion.
Good. I would suggest that we receive Commissioner Holtzman's comment, and then I believe Commissioner Stetcher, since you've made a motion, it would require you to withdraw it, and then Commissioner Maeda would make a new motion. But independent
okay,
legal counsel, please advise on that in terms of what would be the proper procedure. But let's hear from Commissioner Holtzman, then we'll decide how to proceed with the motions, okay?
Okay, but before, you know what, okay, all right. I thought I was going to give Commissioner Stetcher a chance to withdraw his motion. That's fine. In terms of what Commissioner Maeda was just talking about, first of all, I do think we have enough representation from District 5 right now. That's my district. It might be nice to have another one. But again, as I've pointed out before, I don't think, district by district representation on our commission is all that important. What I do want to point out is on the slide that's on the screen right now, the decision of which rows to shade was not a decision that came from this commission. It was, sort of imposed on us by the values of Gala. And I don't think a 50% can be considered anything close to a consensus and shouldn't be considered top in any way. And again, I object to the word top in considering these candidates at this point at all. So, it'd be great if we could just consider this chart here as if it wasn't shaded, for one thing. And certainly I would not include Mark Mendoza in the category, which is now shaded yellow. I would move that down blue if we're going to keep shading. But in terms of also what we seem to be working towards, we should keep in mind that the one specific quantitative requirement of the state law, which establishes our commission, is that we have a party balance on our commission. And the calculations that I've run through and that Gala has seen now and agrees with suggest that we really need to do 3 Democrats, not 4, 2 Republicans, not 1, and 1 not Democrat, not Republican, as the composition of the slate we eventually adopt. So I would like us to work towards that, and would appreciate it if there is a motion, if that distribution, the party distribution, is reflected, so we could comply with the state law.
I would like to defer now to Holly Watley in terms of, as independent legal counsel, how to proceed. We have one motion on the floor that has been seconded. We have an amendment that has not been seconded, and we have a potential new motion coming forward. So how would you guide the group, the commissioners?
So typically, you act on the most recent motion. The most recent motion was Commissioner Stetcher, who actually amended his original motion, and there has not been a second to that. So he can either withdraw it, or we could just deem it as failed for lack of a second. So we can deem it as failed for lack of a second, and the floor is now open for any new motions.
Commissioner Maeda.
I'm sorry, did Commissioner Opernella Segura have a comment or question? I thought I saw.
Commissioner Maeda, I appreciate your insight. I can see if you decide to place a motion for us to consider, I think we can move forward with that if you decide to place a motion on the floor.
Okay, so at least for discussion purposes, I will make a motion then for a slate so that people can be comfortable that we're talking about a slate of candidates for discussion purposes. Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollonio Morales, Cyrus Soto, Mark Mendoza, and Priya Sridahan. And I apologize, Priya, if I'm butchering your name. But that would be my motion to put forward a slate of 6 candidates, which I believe has the appropriate balance in every way to complement the 8 randomly selected commissioners.
I
We have a
second.
Commissioner Franklin seconded. And I believe it has been moved to go forward to a roll call. Can I impose on?
What?
No,
Further
I think we have to discuss it.
Sorry.
Yes.
And I think we should discuss this extensively before we actually call a roll on it. I think each commissioner should be encouraged to weigh in.
So who would like to proceed first? Commissioners. Commissioner Franklin, followed by Holtzman.
I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Maeda. He amply described and succinctly spoke, and I adhere to his recommendations as well. So that's my comment.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay, so again, the threshold matter for me is having 3 Ds, 2 Rs, and 1 NDR. The proposed slate does not achieve that balance. I would suggest that we amend the slate at some point to include 1 more Republican and eliminate 1 of the Democrats listed there. And I would feel best about including Dan Woods, and would also be fine with including Mary Kenney. With regards to Republicans, Mark Mendoza, I still have some bit of a conflict of interest concern there. It may not be in the current law, but I think it's an ethical thing. I would be concerned that he may still be looking for work with county agencies, bidding for contracts with county agencies, bidding to manage contracts for county agencies, trying to look on contracts. I take, maybe a stricter view of government ethics than others. I did work for what's now called Consumer Watchdog, the Foundation for Taxpayer and Consumer Rights, as an attorney. And we were looking for ways to validate something that had been passed in many localities around the area here, around Southern California. It was called the Oaks Initiative. And it was basically not allowing campaign contributions more than like $5 or maybe none at all from anyone with any business or bidding before the county. It requires, it's been enacted in, I think, 4 charter cities, including Pasadena, I think, but hasn't been implemented because of establishment resistance, so to speak. So I do have that concern about Mark Mendoza. But yeah, Mark Mendoza is obviously attractive to all of us slate drawers at this point because he hits 2 boxes. He's Mexican American and he's Republican. So I can see why people would be gravitate. So say, like, we'll choose him. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But we could make clear to him that he should set aside any concerns of that sort if we put him on. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if we got him on. He seems great in most ways. It's just that one conflict of interest thing that for Mark Mendoza that I have an issue with. I did have another look at Sarah Soto's application while we were discussing, a quick look. She's good, basically good. I did have, let's see, one concern. Let's see, what was that? Hang on. I have notes on the various candidates that I did. Let's see, first of all, what do we have for her and party? Oh yeah, she is right, and DR, that was good. She's good diversity, but where she has a little bit of weakness is in applying legal requirements, state and federal legal requirements. She's done voter outreach and poll watching things, but I don't see her and others of having to actually interpret and apply legal requirements. But again, having seen the enthusiasm for her, I could see leaving her on the slate. Apollino Morales and Dorina Wong, given the concern about having another Asian American on the commission, I'm fine with that. I can see that. Carolyn Williams, again, I think Carolyn Williams, I would prefer Elizabeth Johnson. They're from adjoining zip codes and similar areas. I see Carolyn Williams as perhaps too establishment, you might say. She's been involved with nonprofits, a lot of nonprofits that and that gives me pause because nonprofits often set the political agenda in our communities. You will see nonprofits often using politicians to fundraise, which benefits both and what have you. She's been in the position of deciding which nonprofits get money from SoCal Gas. And as I said, and what you should keep in mind is that politicians do kind of have their favorite charities. So it's more like politicians would seek favors from her than she would seek favors from politicians. But anyway, and the other thing is she too doesn't really have experience applying legal requirements. And the decisions she makes are not necessarily impartial, but the decisions she makes are to serve the interests of whatever organization she's working for in general. That's what I've seen. Whereas Elizabeth Johnson is a retired activist. Let's see, I have her, I had her application up on the screen. I just liked her for a number of reasons. And hang on, please bear with me here. Here we go. Here we go. Sorry, I closed the file. It's opening now. Oh, and I see this is the one that tells me to use the PDF because I couldn't easily convert it to Word. So I'll go back to the to Acrobat. Again, many apologies for taking so long here.
While you're looking at Commissioner Maeda also has had his hand up. Do you want to find that document And in the interest of time, let Commissioner Maeda speak, and then we'll return to you.
I think I can find it real quickly now that I know where to look for it. And I found it. Here it is. Okay, so yeah, so she's good on diversity from where she grew up near the projects, etc. I guess you sort of tracked the comments I had listed when I included her on my slate. She's very, very good on diversity. So it's not just that she's African American. Working for DWP on diversity and County Department of Health Services, and her impartiality is great. I thought with the loan program, just working on her understanding of real estate, and I would encourage commissioners to take a second look, basically, at Carolyn Williams. She was directly responsible for interpreting state, federal, and local legislation that impacted DWP. So, yeah, and everybody's got quantitative experience, but her as a bank teller, I thought would be good for our budget. So that's why I personally would prefer Elizabeth Johnson to Carolyn Williams. So I just wanted to say that. So let's see, otherwise, just going back to the nominated slate. It's kind of, adding Priya. I love the idea of having, the Southeast Asian addition to the commission, but I think she puts it over the top in terms of too many Democrats and not enough Republicans. So those are the things I'm thinking about now. So I would love to see if maybe we can compromise and do a little swapping, but I will leave it at that.
Commissioner Maeda.
Sure. With regards to the comment about candidates not having legal experience conforming to the law or whatever, we have capable legal counsel that will make sure that doesn't happen, as well as plenty of lawyers already represented and also on the proposed slate. So I don't think that's, I think we will make sure that that doesn't happen with regards to individual commissioners. But I am concerned about the issue about the party representation. And when I look at the charts that we've been given, it's my understanding that if you just look at the 13, not the 14, but the 13 without Priya, we have 7 Democrats. We would have 7 Democrats, 4 NDRs, and 2 Republicans. And so that is very close to the 7.3, I guess this would be the county number, 7.3, 4.3 for NDR, and 2.4 for Republicans. So any 14th person is going to make those numbers not match. But right now we are within, 0.3 or 0.4 of exactly matching the population of Democrats, NDRs, and Republicans. So I don't quite understand the thought that we have to have another Republican, because it seems to me having another Republican would make more representation of Republicans than there is in the county, just as having one more Democrat would have more representation of Democrats, and having an NDR would have the same. In other words, we're going to be off by one person because you can't split a person. And so I don't understand why there's the desire that Commissioner Holtzman have to ensure that last person is a Republican. But maybe you can enlighten us on that.
Actually, Commissioner Stetcher's hand was up next, followed by Holtzman.
Yes, and I was going to speak to the same thing. It seems to me that the major objection that Commissioner Holtzman raised was about party representation. And I think we are now dealing with small fractions. And while 2.4 exceeds 2 by more than 4.3 exceeds 4, or 7.3 exceeds 7, we are not allowed to use a strict formula or ratio to make these choices. And so I think any additional person of any party would be consistent with our charge, which is to be broadly representative without being formulaic.
If I may also suggest, Commissioner Holtzman has another comment, and then I see Commissioner Obregon's hand. I do want to sort of respect Commissioner Obregon's suggestion that every commissioner have a chance. And so what we might do after these next two comments, commissioners that have not had an opportunity to speak, let's make sure we call on, they have that opportunity. So Commissioner Holtzman and then Commissioner Obregon.
Okay. The first thing, I'm sorry, Commissioner Stetcher, if you didn't get this, but the party balance part of the law is the one part where we are allowed to use specific formulas. And I would suggest we think about specific formulas. It's the no specific formulas applies to the other criteria. So just so we understand that that's not a reason to not look at the fractions. And that's what Commissioner Maeda was, legitimately concerned why I think this. And it's really because the 0.4 is closer to the next number than either of the 0.3s. But if you want to, my second choice would be to overweight with the NDR, because I think that's the trend in which voter registration is going. More and more people are choosing to register without a party preference. My third choice would be to overweight on Democrats and have 4 new Democrats added to the commission.
Okay, Commissioner Obregon.
In listening to the conversations, gosh, I almost feel that, because I guess a consensus means everybody agrees, and I don't think we're there, but boy, I feel that 7 of us would have a consensus on the Priya being the 6th person, and to not consider Priya just because she's Republican, gosh, I'm not sure. She has a positive Asian Indian woman. I almost feel that's natural. And yeah, Republican might be a little, but it's not too far from the norm of the Republican number, where by adding a second 1, remember, I think I'm a Republican. So, and adding Mark Mendoza as that, 2 out of 14, you're right, that ain't 18%. Gosh, I guess that'd be 15-ish%. But we're within the statistical norm there, I think. And so I think that the 6 that we're debating is probably a good way to go. And if we can achieve the consensus and get that, thank you.
I'm going to go around now and call on those who have not had an opportunity to speak, starting with Commissioner Soto. Would you like to add any comments regarding the motion on that has been put forth by Commissioner Maeda, the slate?
Yes, thank you, Kayla. I'd like to thank Commissioner Maeda for articulating and highlighting valid points for the proposed slate that includes Caroline, Dorina, Polonio, Syra, Mark, and Priya. The top 4 were on my slate, so I'm definitely in agreement with that. The last 2, Mark Mendoza and Priya, they were not on my slate, but I see there are strong features that they can bring to this commission. So I feel like it's still going to create a good balance for this commission, and I would be supportive of it. Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Orpanella Segura, your observations, comments on the slate.
I would be supportive of the slate mentioned. I initially was considering and Maria Williams Slaughter on my slate. However, after hearing some feedback from Commissioner Maeda, I think it is very important to have representation from different ethnic backgrounds. Therefore, I would be supportive of Priya. And I understand it may be difficult or challenging for all 8 of us to agree on the full slate, but if we can get as close as possible to that, I think we are helping each other.
Commissioner Franklin.
I'm in agreement with the slate of Carolyn Williams, Dorena Wong, Paulina Morales, Syria Soto, Mark Mendazo, and Priya Sridharan.
Okay, Commissioner Vento.
So I like these candidates, but I did want to point one thing out. And I'm torn between Priya and Maria Williams Slaughter, and this is my rationale. Priya does serve South Pasadena, and I believe we already have existing commissioners that are touching or right by her district. So that is something to consider. I just want to throw this out there. Maria Williams Slaughter is 52. She's from Lakewood. She does bring a lot of diversity to the team. So that's what I'm just looking at, her skill set and what she brings. So, I mean, I'll go either way with what the commission wants, but I did want to just highlight that Maria Williams Slaughter was one that I really considered that stood out as a very strong candidate for our commission.
Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to speak on this motion, this slate? Do you feel comfortable that we can take a roll call at this point on it? And then if it does not pass, then Commissioner Vento, you may want to consider a different slate. Commissioner Holtzman.
I'm sorry, I think it's urgent at this point. I was just considering Mark Mendoza's potential conflict of interest in terms of general principles, but now I've actually looked at the law governing our commission, and I'd like to point out that section 21532 election code, paragraph D, subparagraph 4, subparagraph B. So it's 21532 D4 capital B, says that a commissioner shall not have within the last 10 years done this: served as an employee of or paid consultant for elective representative at the local, state, or federal level representing the county of Los Angeles. So I know that's about serving for an elected representative, but the Metro Board is really composed of elected representatives. And they're the ones who make decisions about the contracting. So I just wanted to point that out to people. I'm sure Holly Watley will say, well, it wasn't directly working for the elected representative. He was working for the Metro Board, Metro, but I just want to point out that I just found that in the law.
I believe we also have a hand up from Commissioner Orpinella Segura. Do you want to have independent legal counsel weigh in on that comment before making your comment, Commissioner Orpinella Segura, or?
It was just a question. I don't have the application up. Was it Metro MTA or Metro Metropolitan Water District?
Oh, Metro MTA, also San Gabriel Council of Governments, LA County Sanitation District.
So if we can hear from
LA County Flood
Council,
what's that?
If we can hear feedback from our general counsel to weigh on this, please.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Holtzman anticipating my response a little bit. It is true that that section that he points out, it talks about being employed by an elected representative. So it's focusing on whether you have worked directly employed directly or consulted with an elected representative, as opposed to the body, the jurisdiction that the person is elected to. So that technically is correct. I do think Commissioner Holtzman just generally is raising an issue that is valid for consideration, even though technically I do believe that the candidate satisfies the criteria technically. But I do think it is something you can consider in a broader sense.
Thank you.
I believe that Commissioner Soto's hand was up right prior to independent legal counsel. And then I know we have Orpanella and Stetcher.
Yes, I just had a comment or a question just to verify. All of the applications, the 16 applications that were screened and by the LA County Registrar-Recorder's office, I believe they already pre-screened for any conflicts. So I think all of the applications should have met all the laws. Otherwise Mark Mendoza or anyone else wouldn't have qualified to be on the top 60 list. So I think, technically, just like Holly mentioned, yeah, he met the criteria. So I think we should be okay. And that's it.
Okay. We have Commissioner Orpanella Segura, followed by Stetcher, followed by Maeda.
I was just going to mention what Commissioner Soto shared. I think, the applications were reviewed by the reviewing committee. So, and given our legal counsel's feedback, I think I would be comfortable and have confidence that he is clear for serving on this commission, he being Mark Mendoza.
Commissioner Stetcher. Sorry, Commissioner Maeda then.
Sorry. I just want to point out that the MTA board consists of 14 members, of which 5 are the existing supervisors in the county, but also other folks, the mayor, there's council members, and I'm not sure how the other people are chosen, probably appointees of city council or so forth. But it's not as if there's a board of 5 supervisors and they're the bosses of Mark Mendoza.
Of course, a lot of those people want to be supervisors too, eventually.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? Holly, could you provide guidance in terms of at what point we can actually take a roll call on the motion that has been seconded?
Anytime the commissioners are ready.
So our commissioner is ready. And I have written down some quick notes. I don't know, Commissioner Maeda, if you want to repeat the motion or if you would like me to.
I lost the slide that has the folks on, so because I turned to something else, but oh, here they are. Okay, so I move the randomly selected members of the LA County Citizens Redistricting Commission that we approve, I guess, the following 6 candidates to be added to the commission: Carolyn Williams, Dorina Wong, Apollonio Morales, Cyrus Soto, Mark Mendoza, and Priya Sridharan.
And that motion had been seconded by by Commissioner Franklin. And so with that, Ty, can you take a roll call?
I will now take roll call. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Franklin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Holtzman?
All right, my vote is informed by 2 concerns. first, my concern with the party balance issue, and second, my concern with the apparent conflict of interest with Mark Mendoza. Although I'm very happy that we're just about finished with this. And I trust that all of the people that it looks like we're about to elect, to select, will do a good job. My vote is no.
Commissioner Maeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Obregon,
Yes.
Commissioner Orpanella Segura,
Yes.
Commissioner Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Stetcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Vento.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1.
So congratulations, commissioners. You have completed the primary purpose of your formation. To go back to where we are at now, you have made a final selection of the next 6 commissioners to be added. I will propose that we cancel the special meetings that have been posted for tomorrow, Tuesday, December 29th at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Is there any problem with us going ahead and canceling those 2 meetings? Okay, so now that you have a slate, I would request that we approach the executive office of the Los Angeles County to notify the selected commissioners, similar to how the 8 of you who were randomly selected were notified. I would also suggest that you assign me the task to notify the remaining applicants regarding the list of commissioners selected. I'm sorry, that should be the executive office does that. And that I then could reach out to the ones that have been proposed. The issue of alternates should be postponed until all 14 of you meet in January and develop your bylaws. What I will be doing in the next few weeks now with the 14 of you is doing another doodle of different dates and times that we could begin to not only schedule the first meeting, but hopefully what could be routine meetings that we could then post going forward. So be on the lookout for that. Any other items that should be added to the to-do list? Yes, Commissioner Holtzman. Followed by Maeda, followed by Orpanella Segura.
So in having the executive office notify the selected commissioners, could you ask them to please do it in a hurry? It took them a real long time to get to us after the drawing of the 8 of us. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Orpanella Segura.
I just want to thank everyone for your collaboration. I do have to log off, so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and I look forward to working with the full commission. Have a great day and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Commissioner Maeda, I'm sorry I took you maybe out of turn.
That's quite all right. I was, in addition to notifying the remaining commissioners who were not, I'm sorry, the remaining candidates who were not selected, is there any way to, I'm just throwing that out for discussion. Is there any way to suggest that there's a possibility that they might become alternates? In other words, I don't want people to simply just close the book and walk away and not think about it. I mean, there are some that I think we can probably come to at least a plurality, if not a consensus, as to who might be good alternates.
So I'm going to defer to independent legal counsel if we can include that they're still being considered. And I know you also had discussed whether or not if they're being considered for an alternate, if they would want to remain in the mix or to possibly withdraw. We talked about it earlier.
Yes, I think it is a good idea to notify those that weren't selected that there may be alternates selected, and so their names may still be considered, and probably just to leave it at that.
Any other comments on these actions, Commissioner Stetcher?
I want to be clear about the information that we've assembled. Is everything on our slides and in our notes public record, or do I need to carefully dispose of comments on individuals and out of respect for their privacy and confidentiality?
Everything on slides is public information. I will defer to our independent legal counsel about your working papers. And this will be a matter that we also have to cover with all 14 commissioners when you are officially sworn in. So Holly, do you want to weigh in?
Yes, your personal notes that you took, that you jotted down, any annotations you made on any of the slides, etc., that you kept for yourself. Those are not public, or they're exempt under the Public Records Act, under the deliberative process privilege, just as if you kept notes, if you were at a live meeting. Those are different than the responses you sent to the executive director that informed the data sheet she prepared. So your own private scribblings, you don't need to maintain.
Thank you. And I want to wish everyone a happy new year as well.
Okay, we haven't quite adjourned. Any other
I know.
questions or input from the commissioners on next steps? So I will go ahead and work with the executive office for them to expeditiously get these letters out. We will add a comment to this current slate that you have, the extended one beyond the 6th, that they may be considered as alternates and to determine their interest to remain on the list. And moving on, I just want to remind you that we are going to try to target the second week in January if we can get a quorum together, hopefully all of 14, to do the swearing in, to begin the process of the bylaws, for you to elect a chair and a vice chair, go through various trading. We will also need to move expeditiously on presenting to you a public access plan for outreach, and I have a Carlos Alba working with me on that. And we are targeting the first 7 public hearings for the spring. Those are to occur before the census data is inputted, and will allow people to learn more about the process. During the summer, we hope to get the census data. You'll be trained on the software, as will the public, to be using for the mapping. That we hope will also occur in the summer. We are dependent upon the US Census Bureau in terms of receipt of the data. Once the data are officially downloaded into the software, the public and organizations and yourselves could begin to work with it. And we will have various groups, I'm sure, submit proposed redistricting maps for you to look at. You will hear comments on public comments about that, and you'll receive them. And then you will develop your proposals, and there will be 2 more public hearings responding to those. Again, our target completion date for all of this, the latest it can be, is December 15th. And again, we'll go over this timeline and we'll develop a more detailed calendar for the year. So moving on to agenda item miscellaneous, number 3. We have decided, as we did on Saturday, in the interest of time and a holiday, and given how expeditious this had to be, that since the Brown Act does not require at special meetings that there be public comments for matters not on the agenda, we will be forgoing that today. Agenda item number 3, matters not posted. Commissioners, do we have any matters not posted to be placed on future agendas? Commissioner Holtzman.
Just briefly, following up on my comment about doing a land acknowledgement, I wanted to let my fellow commissioners and everybody know that I've reached out to a friend who has presented on how to do those, and I'm working towards that, and I hope we can include those on our future agendas.
Okay. Any other
And Happy
items?
New Year, everyone.
Oh, Commissioner Stetcher has now added a frivolity. So with there being no further matters of adjournment, congratulations. You have selected the 14 commissioners going forward into 2021. I wish you a wonderful conclusion to the end of this year and to a much brighter and healthier 2021 for all. So with that, the meeting is.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you, Gayla, Ty, and Holly, for your hard work on this. I know a lot of weekends and holidays, so appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Happy New Year all.
Thank you.
Looking forward to
Bye.
seeing you all next year.